Hey guys, it is Mr. Bacon and Miss Maria, and we are going to learn about Jesus being arrested tonight. So the last couple weeks, we've been talking about Palm Sunday and the Last Supper, and about the juice and the bread and what each of them represents. So now we're going to figure out why he did that. And the reasoning is because he's going to be arrested tonight. So this is right after the Lord's Supper that they take together. And Mr. Bacon is going to read for us out of, well, it can be found in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So take it away.
Woohoo! All right, it's Jesus is arrested, and it's Matthew 26, Mark 14, Luke 22, or John 18. So it's in a lot of different chapters of the Bible, so you got a pretty good detailed description on what happens. All right, Jesus and his three closest friends, Peter, James, and John, went outside after supper to a garden near some olive trees. Stars shone brightly in the sky, and the air smelled sweet. Only he knew that soon the world would change forever. "Wait here," Jesus told his disciples. He went alone into the garden to pray. "Father, please," he said, "isn't there another way without so much suffering? I don't want to be separated from you, but Father, I will do whatever you want." There was no other way. Jesus knew that God would have to lay all the sins of his children on Jesus' shoulders to save them from their punishment. And for those hours while Jesus suffered, he would be separated from the Father he loved, because sin has no place with God. That would be the worst. But Jesus would do it to save men and women, boys and girls, from God's punishment. Then he heard the clanking of soldiers' swords and smelled their torches burning. They pushed into the garden with Judas leading them. Judas showed the guards which man was Jesus. That's it.
So at the beginning, we find out that Jesus is in the garden. And he takes three of his very special friends with him. And Jesus knows what's about ready to happen. He knows that this is like the end of the road for him. That any minute now, Judas is going to come back with the guards. So he's praying to God, asking, is there any other way? And, Jesus already knows that answer. There's not any other way. This is what's got to be happening, so that way our sins can be taken away. And when the guards show up, they take Jesus out of the garden, and they do something that's not so nice to him. And he, at this point, knows what's going to happen next. Jesus,
You want me to finish the story? Okay. Soldiers dragged Jesus through the streets to Jerusalem's leaders. "Are you the Son of God?" they asked. "I am," Jesus said. "Liar," they shouted. "How dare you disrespect God by saying you're his son?" The soldiers whipped him, beat him, and spit on him. They made him wear a purple robe and a crown of sharp thorns. And they made fun of him. "Ha! Now you look like the king of the Jews," they laughed. Because he's wearing a crown. But Jesus hadn't done anything wrong, and he knew it. This was all part of God's plan. When the soldiers came, some of Jesus' disciples were afraid and ran away. Others, like Peter, hung around to hear what was happening. Peter was warming himself by a fire when a servant girl asked him, "Aren't you one of those guys who was with Jesus?" No, Peter said. It wasn't me. Another girl asked, "Are you sure? You look a lot like him." "It wasn't me," Peter said. More people came up. "We're sure you're that guy." "Listen, I don't know Jesus," Peter lied. "I have never known Jesus." The rooster crowed, "Caw-caw-caw!" And Peter ran away, and he cried and cried because he denied Jesus.
So, at the Last Supper, Jesus had predicted some things that was going to happen. One of the things was that Judas was going to betray him. We knew then at the Last Supper that Judas was going to go and tell the guards where he was at, and he knew that he was going to be taken away from the guards. He also knew at this time that some of his friends, who was his very, very close friends, were going to deny him. Who was going to say, "I don't know you." And he knew that Peter was going to be one of those people. And Peter said, "That's not going to be me, Jesus. All the way to the end. I'm going to be right there with you. I'm going to love you. I'm going to be there with you." But that's not what happened. Just like Jesus predicted, Jesus said that he was going to deny him. And he did 3 times. So, while they were in the garden, the guards took him away, and on the way they did some horrible things. Some really horrible things to him. They beat him, they spit on him, they made him wear the crown of thorns, which, if you don't know, if you've ever picked a rose up with some thorns on it, it's really sharp and can really hurt you. Can you imagine wearing a hat made out of thorns like that? It wasn't a nice thing. It wasn't a nice thing to see, and it wasn't a nice thing to have to go through. And he did that all because he loved us. In fact, Jesus loved us with all of his heart to the very, very end. Jesus loved us before we were even born, and he will continue loving you forever. On the darkest nights and the scariest nights, Jesus allowed himself to be killed on the cross because of his unstoppable love for you. Whenever you feel alone or scared, just remember, Jesus, you are always with me, and you will never stop loving me. And this is always true. You know, right now we're going through a hard time, and it may be scary, and there's some weird things going on, but Jesus is still there with us. And at this point, we just need to keep worshiping him and knowing that he's got a plan for us and that he loves us, and he's going to do whatever he can to keep loving us. So our Bible verse for tonight comes out of John 15:12, and it says, "This is my command, love each other as I have loved you." And Jesus does love you with his whole heart, and he always will, guys. Love you guys. Bye.